Now, I always, like I've done in the past, we've had such an exciting life, and there's always little stories that I love to talk about before we get into the message. And this was actually a scary story, probably the most scariest that I have ever encountered. We of course, you remember, we moved to Botswana in 1992 or 1991, and we moved up to Maun, Botswana in July of 1992. And it was a little African village. It was on the edge of the Okavango Delta. There's a lot of tourists that came up there. And in the village of Maun, there was an area along the river where a lot of the white folk lived. And then there was the heart of the village where most of the Africans were. And we bought a piece of land right in the middle of that area. And so we started to develop our little home there. I started to build a house. We bought this piece of land. I had a little bit of money. We bought this piece of land, and then we started to build it. And we only built as we could afford. And when we moved in, we had no glass, no doors, no ceiling, no floor, just a concrete floor. But we moved in anyways. And that way I didn't have to pay rent. And any money we put towards rent, we could start to add to the house. Over the years, we developed a lovely, lovely little home in the middle of this village of Maun. And this is just to give you an idea of what it looked like in the front. And this was the front yard, and this was the backyard. We tried to make it very nice for our family and for our boys that were living with us at the time. But one time, what really, really scared us is by this time, our three boys had now left and come back to this side of the world. Our oldest son, Andrew, had married and moved back to Botswana. He was living in Maun, and he was the manager of a safari lodge. And so Karen and myself were in the home, and we always kept a lot of dogs because of security reasons. And so we had little Jack Russells, we had Boer Bulls, and we had Great Danes and things like that. And we always kept the front yard fenced off from the backyard, just as a practical nature, so we didn't have to clean up all the dog doo-doo in the backyard. And that's where we were having our meals, often in the back porch. Now, this one particular night, also what was going on in the neighborhood is there were bad people around robbing people. And our neighborhood developed this, it was a radio system where every family who wanted to, they could have this two-way radio. And if you ran into difficulties, you could call for help on the radio. And so that was always beside my bed in case something happened. And this one night around 2 a.m, I do remember now, in the back of my dream, I heard the dogs whimpering. And we had blocked them out into the front yard, so they weren't in the back. And what had happened was there were 5 thieves had used a big pole, and all of our windows had burglar bars on them, as you may imagine. And they pried the burglar bars open, and they got in, and the door opened to our bedroom, and 5 guys came into our bedroom. And you can just imagine the first thing that he said to me. He says, "I know you're a people who fear God. We don't want to hurt you. We want to know where the safe is." And I said, "I don't have a safe." And he forced us to be covered up. And here's my darling wife beside me in bed. And they put the covers over our head. And every time he was asking me a question, I instinctively just pulled the covers down. And he wanted to, he was going to hit me, and with my own walking stick. And eventually we stayed quiet underneath the covers while these 5 guys rummaged through everything in our house: computers, jewelry, And the funniest thing is the one guy, he saw my wife's wedding ring on the bedside table, and he grabbed those and he gave them to my wife. He says, "We don't want to hurt you. We don't want to hurt you." And he gave her wedding rings to her. Eventually, the noise subsided and we weren't sure, can we get out? Can we not get out? And we got up, and apparently they were gone. And so right then I heard my radio. They had grabbed my radio and threw it in the corner, and I heard somebody on the radio. And then I called on the radio and said, "Listen, we've been robbed." And before long, we had the police and everything were on our doorstep. And I still remember at this time I was having ministry in the police station and also in the prisons. And a lot of the policemen knew me. And one of the big shot police officers, he came, and in Botswana, my name for a Bible teacher is called Muruti. That's how I'm known in the village, as Muruti. And he said, "Muruti, I'll give you a gun. Next time, just shoot him. We'll forgive you. Just shoot him." That was their response. And I says, "No, I can't shoot. I won't do that." And then, anyways, that was probably my most scariest time in Botswana. And the Lord definitely preserved us in spite of those challenges. So, I talk about a lot of fun stories, exciting stories. This one wasn't so much fun. It was probably the scariest time in my life, just because I felt so inadequate to protect my wife from these guys. But where men feel inadequacy, the Lord steps in. So we do thank the Lord for that. Now,